Welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Lisa Campion, who is a Reiki master, psychic counselor, and best-selling author on the podcast. We're going to get all into psychic gifts, intuition, energy vampires, energetic boundaries, literally all of the psychic, beautiful, fun things that I just love to talk about. So this episode is so good. And yeah, I'm really excited for you to listen to this episode. I always love listening, re-listening as I edit and then go to make these little intros. But we actually recorded this, I think, like last month. So we're not too far out from recording, whereas all the rest of the episodes were recorded like back in February, March, which energetically, I always believe that what comes through whenever it comes through is always for the moment. Like every time I listen to, even if I recorded something 6 months ago and I listen to it as I'm editing, I'm like, whoa, this message is for me. And I know that it's for more than just me, like right now. So anyway, this episode was a lot of fun. There's a few things that I wanted to just mention, drop in before we really get into this. So this past week was the full moon in Aries. I know I'm feeling so much frustration, so much like anger kind of boiling to the surface, a lot of shadows. I think with Mercury having moved into Scorpio, we are going to feel a little bit more shadowy in our mind. And it was just square to Pluto, which is bringing some intensity, but it's also allowing and offering transformation because although this is death, intensity, control, power, manipulation, secrecy, all of these things, there is the archetype of the healer held within Scorpio, Pluto, and Mars, as it relates all to Scorpio. So it might feel intense right now. If you feel similar, you might be feeling really frustrated. You might be noticing your patterns. I just wrapped up a program yesterday on Clifton Strengths, and I didn't facilitate it. I was taking part of this, and we talked about ourself, how we can use strengths to just do our own inner work, and just some really powerful themes came up for me that I will be reflecting on and doing the work of. And really, in this episode, we talk about energetic protection. We talk about energy vampires, people who just sort of like suck the energy from us, when you feel exhausted afterwards. And it's interesting, as I was editing and re-listening, I know that there was a part in my life back in my 20s, maybe even my early 30s, when I was so lost, when I didn't even see myself, when I didn't even know who I was, where like I was that person. Because I know that I've always been really empathetic. I've always been really sensitive, but there was a time where I would just like tell my problems to anybody that would listen. I would just like go on and on and on. And it was like on loop and repeat, and it wasn't solving any problems. Right. And then there came a point where I had to take full responsibility and just like keep my issues to myself to move through them. And I apologize if you can hear my kids screaming, actually, specifically my son screaming in the background. We have fall break this week, so everybody's at home. But yeah, that program was really beautiful and really eye-opening. I also launched a secret podcast. So if you are interested in joining the journey over there, the link is down below so you can learn a little bit more about like what it is, what I'll be talking about, how you can access it, all the things down below. And the Inner Mother Collective is also available. So, oh my gosh, the Inner Mother Collective, I'm obsessed. This is literally for women, for entrepreneurs. Like you don't have to be a mother to be there. We have women in there that are not mothers, but we're all birthing something, wherever we're at on our journey. But really just, we're there to support each other. We're there to grow together. This is this new age sort of Aquarian vibe of community. We're again supporting each other, which I was so drawn to this because I know in my own reality, in my own current experience, I need support. I need community. And it's not something that I have in my physical space right now. So this is all housed over there, but you get moon circles, you get virtual gatherings, we're going through a business mastermind as it relates to human design and astrology, which has been so eye-opening. We've had 2 sessions and all of the replays are in there. And when you come in, you are automatically an affiliate. So this isn't just about one person having all of the profits, I guess, of this space. We're here to resource each other in more ways than just financially, but it really is a beautiful container, beautiful space. So if you want to join us over at the Inner Mother Collective, you can click below. Again, we're still going through this business mastermind. We've had 2 sessions, so you can catch the replays for those. Moon circles are in there. I'll do random little workshops. The secret podcast is there as well as on another platform, but you'll get access to that. There's just so much beauty and support in there. And then the last thing is Astro Design School starts October 14th. This is a 6-month journey. We're learning and we're embodying. And it's 6 months because I believe this is the time it takes to really learn and integrate all the information. We're also going through the zodiac in polarities. So we'll be, module one, each module is an entire month. So module one is human design and astrology foundations, but we're also going to be going through the Libra Aries axis, understanding what that means, how it shows up, where it is in your chart. And then each month we have practices to really come into this energy. So come into what Aries and Libra means for you. And also we're doing practices around drawing our own chart, right? Like reading our own chart, understanding all the aspects. So there's a lot of actual practices in there. So it's not just an intellectual program. I really, really want you to anchor in and embody it. So that again is starting October 14th. The link is down in my bio. The link is down below in the show notes. You can get everything in there. I am so grateful that you're here, that you're listening. Follow Lisa on socials, her links, her website, her Instagram, her podcast. Everything you need to know is linked in the show notes. Mine is, if you're not following me, it's at Rochelle.Christiane. That's ROCHELLE.CHRISTIANE. That's TikTok and Instagram. I also have YouTube. I think it's Holistic Human Design Academy, Holistic Human Design over there, but you can go click the link below. And then all the other ways to work with me, to get in contact with me, everything is down below. And if you appreciate the podcast, if you get any value from the podcast, please share it with a friend. It is so helpful. And just rate, review, subscribe, all those things as well. Spotify, it's literally just click those 5 stars and that's it. I hope you love the episode. Would love to hear from you. I love hearing from you guys. It makes my day. Welcome to the podcast. Today I have Lisa Campion, who's a Reiki master, psychic counselor, and best-selling author. And we're going to get into all the things, energy healing, Reiki. I mean, I feel like there's so much to talk about, especially with, like we just said offline, with empaths and everything that's collectively happening, just energetically, astrologically, all the things right now. So I'm really excited. I know. It's like this year, I feel like this year and last year has just been this like absolute like stripping for so many people. A lot of people are reflecting that back to me. And so I think, understanding how to protect ourselves energetically is a huge thing that we all need to be understanding more and doing more in practice now. So I'm definitely excited to get into that, but we'll start with, I'll sort of hand the floor to you if you want to just kind of share your story as much or as little as you'd like about how you kind of got into this work and how it evolved for you.
Sure. Yeah. I'm one of those, I see dead people kids. So I was really born with my psychic gift, and I was born in the 60s, just outside Boston. And back then it was a really weird thing to be. And I was always, seeing spirits, seeing angels, seeing dead people. When I was little, I called them the gray people. I didn't really know they were dead. It took me a minute to figure that out. But, I just had the full on psychic experience, seeing colors, reading people's auras, like, just feeling super empathic too. So, but back then it was such an oddball thing to do. There wasn't like any conversation about it. You couldn't really talk about it without ending up in a mental hospital. You saw angels and talked to dead Uncle Fred. That's where they were going to put you, So for me, my childhood was a lot about like trying to pretend to be normal in public and also figure out like, well, what was this, And I just scoured the world for like the library for information. There just wasn't any. And I feel it's so much easier now where there's podcasts like this and psychics on TV and new age bookstores. And I muddled along as much as I could have been. It was funny because I was listening to your podcast today and you were talking about transcendental meditation. My parents were hippies and they took me to transcendental meditation in 1974. I was 10.
Wow.
And so because that's what you did when you were hippie in 1974, but that's so I learned transcendental meditation when I was 10, and I had sort of this also, it was really challenging, but I also had some very beautiful gifts and boosts along the way. My parents also took me to, back then it was called Silva Mind Control. Now it's called the Silva Method, when I was in high school, and that was amazing. And then it was the 80s and I was at university and it was the dawn of the new age. Thank the Lord. And then there were all the things that I started to get proper training. And that's actually when I started working as a psychic. I was 19. And that's kind of what started it all. I don't know why. I just knew it was what I was meant to do with my life.
Mm.
But I quickly discovered I didn't have enough skills. So when I finished university, I went back to school and became a therapist, and did that for a long time together. And then in 1999, I learned Reiki. That was a pretty weird thing to do too back then. And my whole life has really been about this, helping psychic sensitives and empaths really understand their gifts, step into their gifts, because I think the world needs all the healers it can get. And I feel like my mission is to train an army of healers to go out there and save the planet,
Mm.
because it needs saving right about now. And I think
Yeah.
so much of us have shown up at this time, during this ascension, this shift in human consciousness to help other people, to shift our own consciousness, um, you know, raise our consciousness, do a lot of spiritual evolution, and sort of ride the wave of this ascension into like another, level of our own spiritual development. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm showing up for.
I love it. I always find it so fascinating when I meet people who have had these experiences so young. Like you talk about seeing ghosts and I mean, did you just think that you were seeing regular people and then somebody called you out on like who are you talking to? Or you could sense that they were not like normal people?
Yeah, I knew they weren't normal people. I didn't really know what they were. I knew other people couldn't see them. Um, I knew it didn't go well for me to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I was sort of quiet about it. And like I had this like funny moment. I mean, I knew they were dead. I knew if I really talked to them that they would feel better and go away. But I was like 12 years old when the movie Poltergeist came out.
Mm.
And I went to see that movie, and there was this like, professional psychic, and she gives this little speech about why people get stuck and what ghosts are and how to like, move them along. And I was like, oh my God, somebody knows something. And I was like, blown away by that. And I started watching every ghost and paranormal movie I could get my hands on, because it was sort of the only place I could get education. So I
Mm.
got a pretty sketchy Hollywood version. Like maybe 50% of it was accurate. The rest of it was Hollywood stuff. But,
Yeah.
so that's kind of, how it went for me. I was told I had a really strong imagination, you know,
Mm.
and that they were my imaginary friends. That was sort of the thing back then. And I was like, is it my imagination? I don't think it is, but I knew. It put me in some awkward social situations a lot as a kid,
Yeah.
where like I didn't want to go to my mom had this friend, and she had a daughter my age, but I never wanted to go there because there was a ghost there.
Mm.
And I was super uncomfortable, but couldn't tell anybody why,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. For a long time, I always felt like I like didn't have any skills because I didn't see ghosts or I didn't hear things. But then I've come to realize that for me, it was all feeling. Like I
Yeah.
felt so much, and that was the part of me that was always shut down. Where it's like you're too emotional, or just being invalidated. Like if I felt
Mhm.
uncomfortable, oh, everything's fine. What are you feeling like that for? So it's really
Yeah.
interesting that difference of like I think sometimes the feeling realm maybe we don't necessarily equate with being psychic just because it's not like physically seeing something or
Yeah.
hearing something. And it's just an interesting one to kind of, I guess, understand. I still don't fully
100%.
understand it, but
Well, I think it's like seeing has become synonymous with psychic.
mm,
And that's unfortunate, because there's a lot of psychic skills, psychic senses that we have. We can experience that through all of our senses, actually through all of our chakras too. So seeing is the most rare,
mhm.
and it's kind of the one of the biggest pain in the neck. So it's not an easy one to have.
Yeah.
But maybe you have a sense of knowing. You don't know why, you just know that one's way more common and way more practical. Maybe you just feel like you do your feeler, clairsentience, you feel everything. And that means you could be an empath, you could be feeling everything, that all the people around you are experiencing, but you also might just find yourself saying, like, I don't have a good feeling about that. I don't know if it, this doesn't feel right.
Mm.
Maybe we have a lot of psychic experiences in our bodies that we often don't pay attention to, unfortunately. So your body always knows what's really going on, and will feel like, the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, or you feel shivers or something's, your body always knows what's happening. and then we sense. So I like the word, what are you sensing? What are you experiencing? What are you perceiving? Because it opens us to really all of our psychic senses, not just the seeing. I'll do like psychic exercises and people will say, well, I didn't see anything. I didn't get anything. And I'm like, well, but I heard this, I saw this, I smelled this, I felt this, I knew this. Like, if we open it up to all of them, then all of a sudden there's a lot there.
Mhm. Yeah. So you think like kind of enhancing one opens the rest of them up?
I think we all have a strong one. We all sort
Mm.
of start with one that's our strong. For you, it might be feeling. And when you really start paying attention to that and honoring that, the rest of them usually open up. And a lot of times it's like you just haven't paid attention to the feeling in your body. You haven't connected it to the feeling in your body. You sort of ignore your inner knowing. I'm
Hmm.
not saying you personally, but
Hmm.
one in general. We dismiss the voice in our head
Yeah.
because if you have voices in your head, that means you're crazy, right?
Mm.
So I think a lot of it is sort of selective attention, and that we need to I always used to say, if I wrote a book on psychic development, I would call it Pay Attention. But um, and one of the exercises I really like is to start a psychic journal.
Mm.
Get a journal, call it your psychic journal. I actually published one called the Psychic Awakening Journal. And just start recording all of your experiences, like your dreams, write them down. If you pull a oracle cards in the morning, write it down. All the times you get that feeling, write it down. Anytime you see signs or omens, or you're on the flow, you're like, the universe is giving you those breadcrumbs, write it down. And you'll be shocked about how psychic you already are, first of all. And then whatever we pay attention to grows, and a lot of times these experiences are very ephemeral. We have them, it's a big giant deal in the moment, and then 5 minutes later we forget about it,
Mm.
or the
Mm.
next day we forget about it. So recording it in the journal can kind of like, you can record something on Monday, and then by the time it happens on Thursday, you might have forgot about it, but because you wrote it down, you're like, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen.
Mm.
So that's a really simple, easy way to kind of maximize what you already have and begin to open to what else is going on. And a
Yeah.
lot of it is like, I think, you talk a lot in your podcast about tuning into yourself, like, what are you feeling? What's going on in your body? Like, our attention is so turned outward all the time, and
Hmm.
we're going to miss a lot. So much noise in the world. We live in such a noisy, busy world. We really, really need time, quiet time, introspective
Yeah.
time, even 15 minutes. And I think like multitasking on this is a good, so quiet walking, quiet driving. They used to just call it walking. Now it's quiet walking. When you have like, you don't put a podcast on, you don't
Mm.
listen to a book, you don't get on the phone and gab with a friend, you're quiet. Like, I walk my
Yeah.
dog every day. And I quiet walk, and when I don't have time to meditate, it's meditation time. And also, because when we're in those activities, driving, walking, doing the dishes, folding the laundry, in the shower, our brain shifts into the alpha brainwave, and that's when we're the most intuitive, the
Mm.
most psychic. So you can try this exercise. Write a question in your journal, or write, what do I need to know? And then go do one of those: quiet walk, quiet dish, quiet fold laundry. And then you sort of let yourself space out a little bit, let your brain shift into that sort of daydreaming alpha brainwave. And then kind of keep a light awareness on, you might have an aha moment, or you might be like, oh, a thought pops into your mind, or some awareness moves through you that is like the answer to the question you asked. And that's a really simple, beautiful thing you can do. The bathtub, I call it the bathtub oracle, or the shower oracle.
Hmm.
Psychics get their best in the shower.
Yeah.
Ask the question, get into the shower, and then just forget about it for a minute and wait and see what arises inside of you.
Hmm. I love that. I had a CEO of a company I used to work for, and he used to start every meeting with, I was in the shower this morning. This thought came to me. It was like, but
That's
it's so
right.
true. Like for me, I used to always
Yep.
get them when I was running. Whenever,
Yep.
like every time I would be in that state, something would come through. I'm like, wait, I got to stop and write this down. But I love the idea of
Mm-hmm.
having that psychic journal because, like you said, I think sometimes these really profound things come to us, but then life happens and we move on. We completely forget about it. And then
Yep.
we feel like we have no intuition, or even as it relates to manifestation, a lot of times I think we think, oh, I'm not manifesting anything, but we don't realize all of the little things that we actually are because we're not pausing
Yeah.
to like find gratitude or like acknowledge those things in the moment.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And what we pay attention to, what we honor and acknowledge is what develops and grows, right? That's what it's like the seed you water, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to, I think, make time. I think we have to notice, pay attention. I think we have to honor. And the other thing is you have to like listen to your intuition,
Mm-hmm.
not all the time, but some of the times, 51% of the time, you know, more often than not.
Yeah.
And it's not like every crazy little whim you should pay attention to. And I've seen people really take a bad turn in their life by throwing reason out, abandoning common sense, and just going with their intuition, which I don't think is a good idea. But there needs to be a balance, I think, between intuition and common sense, like really 50-50. And if we get the hit, the psychic impression, and we just don't ever act on it, it shuts down our intuition pretty hard, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times our higher self, our team of spirit guides will sort of test us with the little things. Like if you can't pay attention to the little things, you don't get the bigger information. And it can be really challenging because your higher self, your guides, message isn't always easy to hear. A lot of times it's things we don't want to hear, you know, and that our personal self, our ego self, our 3D self really just likes the comfort zone. We like want a nice comfy life. We want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and snuggle the cat, you know. And your higher self has no, and it's like, yeah, you can do that for 5 minutes, and then it's time to move into the out of the comfort zone into the next uncomfortable thing. So a lot of times our intuition is uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because
Yeah.
it's asking us to grow. It's asking us to confront things that, you know, maybe this isn't the right job for you. Maybe this isn't the right career. Maybe it's not the right marriage, relationship, you know, maybe like, I don't know, like, and especially I think now in this time of change, like we're in this massive deconstruction cycle, and you know, we're all being called to let go, and you know, the old, you know, all that shedding, all that, you know, we're all that paradigm busting that we're in right now. And what's coming new often comes through our intuitive things, but it's super, it can be super uncomfortable. And I think that's why we don't listen. I know that's true for me.
Yeah. Well, and again, I like that practice of writing it down because I think sometimes with intuition, like the mind comes in so heavy so quickly that then we're just like
Yeah.
confused because it's like, wait, I got this hit, but then this. And I mean, at least I know for my, my own personal experience, it's like something comes through and I'm like, in the moment, I'm like, yes. But then literally 3 seconds later, I'm overthinking it. And I'm like, well, maybe that
Mm-hmm.
was from my ego. And, so I like that idea of
Yeah.
like writing it down or just taking note, I guess, of that initial sort of hit that comes
Yeah.
in.
The first hit's usually the right hit.
Mm.
And then like you said, our brain comes in and makes it weird, you know,
Yeah.
second guesses it, goes down the rabbit hole, you
Yeah.
know, of doubt and all those things. And, you know, like getting a clear message also, I think it's good to sit on it, to filter it, to, you know, contemplate it. We really, I think for me, it's like bringing my system into coherence. So I'm like paying attention to all the parts of myself, honoring the best that they have to offer. Like we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We don't abandon reason and common sense. We just negotiate.
Hmm.
You know, like I'm like, so if my intuition, my higher self is telling me to do something, like Lisa, it's time to write another book. I'm working on book number 5 right now. And it's a super tough one. And my spirit was like, yes. And my ego self's like, can you fit it into your calendar? Is it going to make you go crazy when you're trying to write it? And, you know, um, is it going to throw you over the edge? Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And now I'm like, I don't have time and I'm all stressed out and everything. And my, you know, mental self is like, well, we told you this is gonna, you know, this is gonna
Yeah.
happen, and here you are. Like, so I think it's like what the heart and the mind. It's like we have our physical self, the emotional self, the mental self, the energetic self, the spiritual self. There's all these, in energy medicine we call them bodies,
Mm.
but they're really just aspects of ourself that when we have coherence, they're all agreeing with each other, right? They're all in agreement. When they're all in agreement, that's when we manifest. That's when miracles
Mm.
happen. That's when, well, you know, the floodgates open. But it's pretty, for me anyway, hard to get the full on, like full body, yes, every part of me is in agreement, you know?
Yeah. Do you know what your authority is in human design?
Self-projected.
Self-projected.
I'm
Okay.
a self-projected projector.
Okay. And have you like experimented with that authority and how that shows up for you?
No, I barely know anything about human design, so
Okay.
I'm fascinated by it, but I haven't really. Um, I just know the barest, minimum about what being a projector is all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, I love that. I mean, projector is the guide, right? You don't have that defined sacral, but you're here to like guide and lead others. And I think that what you do is such a reflection of that projector energy, like guiding
mm,
people into like this healing aspect and coming into this, psychic abilities within themselves. I think it's beautiful.
yeah,
Mhm.
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. How do we discern like when we're kind of tapping into this stuff? I know for me, so just an example because it's like fresh of mine, but like I know when we're kind of trying to connect with, our psychic skills or intuition or anything like beyond, I guess, what is like normal, I'm air quoting that. Like let's say you are woken up at like 3 o'clock in the morning with just like this heavy feeling, right? Like how do we discern if that's like our intuition or if we're coming from a nightmare or if it's ego or, things like that when it's a little bit more unclear? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do, it's a great question. I think the first thing to do is ask yourself, is this me? You know? And especially like as an astrologer, I don't consider myself an astrologer, but I follow astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I do is because I need help figuring out what's mine and what's, I call it the energy of the world,
Yeah.
you know? And the energy of the world is kind of like the state of the collective consciousness and the moment, the astrology of the moment, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
also all these sort of other mysterious forces that come together to create this like morphic field that we all live in. And I, as a sensitive, I can tune into that collective consciousness pretty easily and feel like fear, feel doubt, feel freaked out, feel, if we know if we spend too much time doom scrolling, we
Mm-hmm.
don't feel good, right? Um, and so the first thing that happens is I ask myself, is it me or is it the world? And to answer that question, we have to know ourselves pretty well. If you don't know yourself at all, you can't answer that question. If you're totally numb to your own feelings and can't feel your body and you know, it, then you can't answer that question. So I think a lot of spiritual development, psychic development is about knowing ourselves. Maybe we do some grounding. So if you're in that 3 o'clock in the morning moment, ground, and you can't tell if it's you or the world. Ground, breathe, shake, move a little energy, get up, walk around, drink, have a glass of water, like get in your body. Okay, how am I feeling? Sometimes I have to break it down. How am I feeling physically? What's going on in my body? How am I feeling emotionally? Where are my thoughts? Where's my spiritual self? Kind of do an inventory. I call that the system check. You know, like, all right, system check. Where am I? Then I can be like, oh, that was a nightmare, or that was a spirit walking, a nasty spirit walking through
Mm-hmm.
the room, or that I just doom scrolled before I went to bed, and I forgot to unplug from the collective consciousness. But if you don't know yourself, it's hard to answer that question.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know. I read a lot of like fantasy books right before bed too. So sometimes what happens, like it's just like my mind's still in the book,
Yeah,
waking myself up. But I do like that. I know I spent I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years into like my astrology human design journey where I was like I felt like I was just like outsourcing everything to like the systems. And so I just spent a year of just like honoring everything that came through my body and I just kind of like threw everything else away. And that really helped me anchor into, like you said, like really getting to know yourself. Cause I think a lot of times we
yeah,
don't understand the feelings and the sensations. And there's still some things that even though I don't fully understand them, I know the feeling, if that makes sense. Like I
hmm
can feel the
yeah,
familiarity of them to know that it's a pattern, even though I might not
yeah.
understand or be able to pinpoint where it came from. So I think that, yeah, it's so helpful in like, yeah, just coming inside. You talk about like
And
energy.
I think as a feeler, I just want to say this one more thing for because I think it's important for feeler types like
Mm,
you, is that we really need to make a distinction between reactive feelings and soul feelings.
mm,
So, reactive feelings are like what happens when your nervous system triggers and you get reactive about something. And reactive feelings never feel good. They're always like fear, panic, anxiety, rage, jealousy, security, like, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And it's really important to know that's like your inner child, that's your nervous system. It's like your adrenal glands squirted a lot of cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. It's like a chemical reaction, basically. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And soul feelings are very different. Soul feelings are like, you know, um, deeper, and they're more an expression of our true nature. And even though sometimes they're hard, they don't feel bad. Like grief is hard, but it isn't, it doesn't feel bad the way like nervous system jangle feelings
Mhm.
feel. So as a feeler, like starting to make a distinction between reactive feelings and soul feelings. Reactive feelings are a sign that you need to regulate, you know, you
Mhm.
need self-care. You need to like take care of yourself. And like I'm not okay. In this moment, what do I need to do to be okay?
Yeah.
We take care of that, and then you want to pick your path from the soul feelings, you know the non-reactive soul feelings they're much longer, they're much calmer, they're much deeper,
Mhm.
right? The reactive feelings are done as soon as the adrenaline clears out of your bloodstream, like, which can be 20 minutes to an hour, you know
Yeah.
but soul feelings are like enduring, they last.
Mhm. I love that. I was just the other day, I was out and I was feeling uncomfortable about something. And I literally felt like, I'm 39 and there are still moments, like, especially like that, which is kind of related to what you're saying, where I literally still feel like I'm 12. Like, I feel like I'm a child and it's a weird feeling. But
Yeah,
then, like you say, that difference between that and then that soul feeling, it's like, it is that like calm, like more like wise,
yeah, yeah.
being in your system. So I like that distinction of like
Mm.
that reactionary feeling versus that soul feeling.
Yeah,
It's
that's
really
like an inner
helpful.
child meltdown, you
Mm-hmm.
know
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's actually what the topic of my next book is that I'm working on right now, is the inner child and reparenting, and how we really do that,
Mm-hmm.
because when the inner child needs attending to, care and love, but it's not the one that should be making the decisions
Mm-hmm.
in your system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it does for a lot of people.
totally. And
Yeah.
totally unconsciously. Like
Yeah.
most of us are in kind of this battle between the inner child and the inner critic,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that inner child's the part of you that doesn't feel good enough, and the inner critic is the part of you that's telling you you're not good enough. And the inner child's like, I know, I'm terrible, I
Yeah.
suck, and we have to like um that goes on inside of our mostly subconscious until we realize it. And then we need some reparenting. That's what my new book will be about. How do we reparent ourselves so that we can show up in our life as a full adult, show up in our
Mm-hmm.
relationships as parents, as in our jobs from a fully adult place, is a game changer.
Yeah. I was listening to you on YouTube and you were talking about imposter syndrome. And I thought this was really interesting, or like just, I guess it gave me some clarity too, or it was really clear. We'll say that. But you're talking about imposter syndrome and the inner critic. And you were saying the difference of like that book, sort of like the book learning, right?
Yeah,
Versus like experiential learning. And I thought that
yeah.
was so fascinating and so like simple, I guess, but just put in that way, it was like, whoa, because I've
Mm.
dealt with imposter syndrome for so long. But I'm also that person where it's like I have to know everything. Like I feel like I have to know before I do, but then all the knowledge is useless unless I'm doing with it, right? And so I
Yeah,
think that have you said it in such a beautiful way, in such a simple way, that I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what
yeah.
happens so
I think that's
often.
it. Yeah, we get out of imposter syndrome when we apply. It's like you got to practice,
Mm,
and because I'm working with training healers, like been teaching Reiki for a long time, and I can teach the courses, and they're like, they'll tell me I don't feel like I can do this. I'm like, go do 100 sessions, go
mm,
do 20 sessions, go, start with 10. By the time
yeah.
the 100th person is rolled off your table, that's gone,
Yeah. Well, I think
you
there's a
know?
piece too that it's like we care so much as well that there's like a responsibility to not do any harm. And I think that maybe fear kind of comes in the doing part, at least for myself sometimes, especially with like, astrology, it's, the study of of patterns in the stars and things like that. But also when I'm speaking to people and trauma comes up or things that come up, it's like I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. So there's that piece of like, am I doing harm sometimes by bringing things up with people?
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. And, um, I think we have to know what's inside of our scope of practice,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that, like if somebody, it will come up, and it does come up for Reiki people too, then you just say that you need to you refer out. So
Yeah.
you say they need a therapist, proper therapist, they need trauma counseling, they need,
Mhm.
a trauma informed therapist, and just have a lot of them in your Rolodex. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or like you need addiction counseling, or you need, grief
Mhm.
counseling, or all the things that we encounter along the way. And, it could be a giant boon to somebody, like a huge moment for them, for somebody to call that out and hand them a business card and say, go get some help with this person. So I
Mhm.
think that's the other thing. And I honor your desire to work ethically. Ethics is a really important topic for me. I talk about a lot, and that sometimes, especially us, alternative healer types don't get a full training on,
Mhm.
and I sort of credit that I went to therapy school and got a full on, you know, heavy dose of how to work ethically and within like serious guidelines and serious consequences if you don't,
Yeah.
that somehow lots of people don't get that training, and they're well-meaning but don't know they're causing harm, or they're not experienced enough to tackle, and they don't know that they're not experienced enough to tackle something really,
Mhm.
challenging. So I think there's always can be this sort of scary moment when something shows up in your office and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so far in over my head. I don't know how to handle this.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, that
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk sort of pivoting a little bit. You talk about energy vampires
Yeah.
and kind of like, going back to a little bit what we were talking about before. How do we how do we protect against that? And like what does that actually mean?
Yeah. Energy vampire, I think of more like energy vampirism is a process anyone can do,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So empaths have a sort of tendency to like point the finger and be like, oh, that person's an energy vampire. And that might be true, but it's really something it's a pattern anyone can fall into. So we just have to be mindful, and nobody's ever taught how to manage their energy. Should be something that I think is taught in third grade, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not. So we don't know how to manage our energy. Nobody knows. So what do? We steal energy from other people all the time. And there are some of us who are natural givers, and there's some people who are natural takers. That's just the way the world works. And a lot of times, empath, sensitives, healer types are in the naturally giving category, right? And hopefully, in an ideal world, there's like a 50-50, flow between you and your people. But sometimes we end up in a situation where we're with a person, we can call them narcissists, is sort of another word for energy vampire. Or narcissists are one type of energy vampire, where they're for all the reasons, for whatever reason, they're not really capable of giving, or there's a big imbalance between the giving and the taking. And I think as empaths, we're sort of magnets for people who are more on the energy taking side of things. So we have to be really mindful about, and because you'll feel really drained after you
Mm-hmm.
have a encounter with that person, or you'll like dread seeing them. You're like, oh my gosh, it's that person. I don't, or you get on the phone with your friend, and after you hang up the phone, you have to like literally go down, lie down, and take a nap. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a sign that we're around somebody who's taking our energy. I think the key in this conversation is to be empowered about this, to not blame the other person, but to fully own that nobody can manage your boundary and your energy except for you. You're the boss. You're the boss of your energy field. You're the boss of whether you say yes or no. You're the boss of how much time you let somebody have. And no one can change that. We can't ask other people to tiptoe around our boundaries. We have to enforce them. We have to know what they are, and we have to enforce them. And there's a lot of empowerment in that, right? I found that quite liberating.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do. It's not really easy. But once we know that, the world is so much easier to be in.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I like as you were talking about just that feeling of being drained, I resonate so much with that. But just like you said, I have been known in my past to not set boundaries. I just like will give it away to everybody, sort of. But like you said, like boundaries are still really challenging, but actually setting them then empowers me to take control of like what I'm allowing, who I'm allowing for how long. And it's definitely changes
Yeah.
things as uncomfortable as it can be sometimes.
Yeah.
but that definitely makes a difference. Do people who say we're like, we get off the phone with somebody and we're just like feeling drained consistently, are they aware and like energetically that they're doing that, or they're just taking what you're giving because you're not setting a boundary?
Sometimes they're aware. I think that the truly psychopathic, sociopathic people, narcissistic personality disorder, like there's a serious problem there. They will be more they're pretty conscious about it, and we know that they're really psychopaths. They're like,
Yeah.
and I say that from a clinical, like, psychological diagnosis. You can look it up. That's what it is. But they will sort of, they're kind of con artists in a way. So they'll target people on purpose to take you for everything you've got, and it could be your time, your money, food in your fridge, the gas in your tank, your credit card
Mhm.
accounts in. They'll drain everything and then move on. Fortunately, those people are pretty rare. I mean, maybe you've encountered one. I think probably everyone has. You get to be a certain age and you've come across them. But I would say that's like 10%, 5%, and the rest of people don't have any idea.
Mhm.
They don't have any idea. They're just hustling and trying to get through the day, and they don't know how to do it. They're really under resourced. They're really, I call one type of them the victim vampire, and that they kind of use their victim status. And hey, we've all been victimized. We've all been victimized. We just have. But some people figure out how to use that as currency to get what they want in the world. And they're sort of conscious about it. They're a little often they're unremorseful about it. Like, and that's the friend that you call and she talks for an hour. I don't know why I just said she, but they talk for an hour and they never ask how you're doing. And when it's your time to talk, they suddenly got to go. And they have the same problem over and over and over again. There's like a drama addiction. They don't really want to change you know, they're getting something out of the drama,
Mhm.
and they don't want to change. And I find those people really tiring,
Yeah.
really exhausting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this, I go into the sauna after the gym every time I go. Just my back's been kind of hurting too, so it's just like definitely helpful with that. But there's this one specific person in there, and she obviously knows a lot of people, and anytime someone comes into the gym, immediately she's like, or in the sauna, immediately she's launched into a story of like how things are going wrong, or it's always like this sort of complaint. And
Yeah.
it's like I use it as like this mirror in practice of like how can I center myself, because like I also want to be in the sauna, right? So it's like in
Yeah.
those situations where I don't really know this person, right? I'm like I it's not, I feel like I'm not going to set an energetic or like a verbal boundary being like, hey, if you're going to be in here, don't talk like that. Like how would somebody set like an energetic boundary in that sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually the first step, I think, is the energy boundary. No matter what, because once you learn the energetic boundary, all the other boundaries get easier,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's like getting fully in your body. So grounding, getting in your tailbone, getting fully in your body. We want to, like, I don't know, like I sort of um and I'll clear out the energy that doesn't belong to me. So I take a few breaths. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to center myself, ground myself, and put up my protection. And I imagine, like, really like an energy bubble. Your energy bubble is a real thing. It's just the outside edge of your energy field,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And you can make, most empaths have it spongy. Like, that's why they call empaths the psychic sponges. And we absorb that in, but we can set it so it's more defined. And I like to program it to allow only energy that's supportive to me, and non-supportive energy stays on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I'm in really dicey situations, airplanes are hard for me. I'm getting on a plane tomorrow, and because you can't get away, and the person next to you is like, well, like sitting on your lap, and there's not a lot of space, physical space between
Yeah.
people. I find that. So when I'm in that situation, or maybe you in the sauna, you put like, it's like you're inside like a spacesuit. You're inside a, coconut shell. You're inside a castle wall that's really sort of impenetrable. And then you're not absorbing that energy. Then when I would get out of the sauna, I would take a few breaths and just like release anything that you picked up, you know? So I think it's grounding. I think it's clearing. I think it's protecting. And when we do that, I recommend doing that a couple times a day. I do it before I have a client, in between clients. I do it before I go into Walmart, halfway through Walmart, when I get out of Walmart. Otherwise, I can't find my car and I forgot what my name is, you know? And I'm like, where am I? Where did I park my
Yeah.
car? So, and you know, on the plane, I'll be doing that. Like, we just have to. Um, and then when we have that good energy hygiene, it's like energy hygiene practice, then all the other boundaries get easier. So I always, when I work with empaths, start them with the energetic practices. And when you get really good, it's like beefing up your energy field, it's like strengthening it. Then we have sort of a leg to stand on when we go to set the verbal boundaries,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important, especially now, because being, if you're an empath and being in public, there's just so much energy that we can pick up that it's like so confusing. I think the airplane's an interesting one. I've heard a lot of people with like anxiety on the airplane, even though they're not like scared of flying. Right. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
that comes from the inability to protect against like other people. Like we're all kind of like bouncing off of each other in that situation, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and especially, yeah, like right now, like what's going on in the collective and, politically and everything, it's like you just go out and you're just like, unless you're consciously protecting yourself, you're just like soaking it in if you're not aware. And yeah, I think that's so important. Do you like when you get up in the morning, do you do some sort of like energy or like some practice to protect yourself?
Yeah, I do a pretty elaborate clearing routine, clearing my energy, meditating. You know, it takes me like sometimes like an hour
Mm-hmm.
to sort of meditate, and so I'll journal. I'll do what I got to do to get my energy into a high frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, depending on
Yeah.
what's going on, you know. And once I get to a higher frequency and I feel all my energy hygiene is good, then I can go cruise through my day. Otherwise, if I don't, I sort of feel like I'm climbing the hill, you know, like I start out kind of miserable and I stay kind of miserable and I might have like a peak moment, but then I go back to being a little miserable. So I just do what I have to do to get myself sorted, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in all the ways, physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, spiritually. Okay, I feel myself, I'm good, and then my day just cruises through. But I'll do it as needed, you know, depending
Yeah.
on what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, Throughout my day too, I might stop and be like, all right, I need to clear myself. And I know because I feel funky, or I know because I'm like want to go scroll or check out or do something that sort of numbs me out, and I'm like, I catch myself being like, why am I doing this? Why, there's something arising in me or some that's uncomfortable, and I need to like, okay, I'm actually just going to deal with that head on and sort myself out and process it, whatever it was, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. So I'm a Taurus. I have this Taurus stellium, and for me, like I love sleep, but so for the longest time I resisted that morning routine because I was like, I'd rather just sleep, and then then I have to get the kids up and everything. But like I think in July, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get up 30 minutes early. And it was hard at first, but it's completely changed the game for me. Like giving
Mm.
myself that extra 30, 40, 45 minutes in the morning to like meditate and journal and just like sit in my own energy.
Yeah.
Like I said, I resisted it for the longest, but it's completely changed everything. So I definitely think
I feel
that's
that. I have
yeah.
moon in Taurus. I have moon in
Oh
Taurus,
yeah.
a Libra. Yeah. Moon in
Okay.
Taurus and Capricorn rising.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, my daughter's a Taurus and she's the same
Oh,
way.
okay. And you're a Libra, so you're
Yeah.
very like Venusian.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, Capricorn risings. Oh my gosh, Capricorns are like the lesson of my life. I'm always coming into contact with Capricorns.
I appreciate my Capricorn energy. It
Mm,
gives me a lot of discipline.
yeah.
So I have a process. I'm a psychic, but I have a system. I have
Hmm.
a method. I have a process. I have tremendous discipline. Like
Yeah.
I was a martial artist for a long time,
Huh.
and discipline is like a really important part of my character. You know,
Yeah.
something that's easy
Yeah.
for me.
Hmm.
And so I can use my discipline to do my spiritual practices, to handle my book deadlines, to do all those things, you know. But it's a little, if I get too far into that, then the Taurus and Libra part of me get cranky
Yeah.
because it's like I'm like a Jedi Knight, roar,
Yeah.
but if I get too far down that road, then the rest of me is like, wait a minute, we want to have
Yeah.
some fun. We want to have some
Right.
pleasure. We want to sleep late. We want to have a good meal,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, it's like that
Yeah.
balance, right? And I think that even for me this summer with implementing like waking up and meditating before bed, it is that discipline piece
Yeah,
is actually really important. And I
it
think
is.
that in our, deepening our spirituality and it's like going with the flow and being in our feminine, I think we forget that there needs to be the balance of that masculine discipline energy in order to like
Yeah.
find that, happy medium because too much of one
Hmm.
or the other is going to, create.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like, especially with spiritual growth, I really believe there's a certain level of spiritual growth you can't get past until you have a discipline, until you have a
Mhm.
spiritual practice and you're
Yeah.
disciplined about it. We'll plateau when we just don't. And every spiritual teacher, every mystery school, every mystical tradition, religion has that embedded into it,
Yeah.
and it's part of like you're not, 22 minutes a day of transcendental meditation, and or yoga, like people who do yoga challenges and meditation challenges, we know what happens. We don't want to do it. We don't want to get on the
Mm.
map. We squirm. The personality is like, this is boring and this is stupid. Like, why do I want to do it? And
Yeah.
it's when we sit with that and sit through that we begin to make that separation between, like, we are not our egoic
Mm.
self. It's a part of us, but we stop identifying with that as who we are, and we expand our sense of identity into, like, well, that's just this little, like, the little mind. Buddhists call it the little mind.
Mm.
Part of us in the big mind is the higher self, and I don't. There's no shortcut. There's no TikTok video you can do to get there. There's no, like, pill you can take. There's no amount of turmeric or whatever is going to do it. I don't know. Like, you have to get on the mat, whether
Yeah.
it's the yoga mat or the meditation mat or any of those things. And then we grow spiritually. There's a maturation that happens, I think, where we're like, oh, inner child. The ego is also your inner child. Like, that's just
Mhm.
that part of me is throwing a fit right now. And yep, I can see that that's happening. And oh my gosh, oh, that looks real. It's so painful. And I'll just breathe, let's, like, move that energy, and then we really get a handle on ourselves, and we can live our lives from a more expanded place instead of being at the mercy of this part of us that's, not all. It's not the best of who we are, and it's not all of
Mhm. Yeah, I think we're all just looking for these quick fixes with everything.
who we
Everything's just like now and quick and fast, right? And I think that it's just not. And that can be the most challenging part for us is like having to sit with
Yeah.
it and having to, yeah, just that discipline, the ego and the subconscious is just like, no, no,
Right. I,
not
I mean, it's
ready.
like getting fit. Like, if you're into fitness, right?
Mm,
It's about getting in the gym and doing it times a week, 4 times a
yeah.
week, not just once, but forever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing with spiritual practices. If you really want it, that's what you got to be prepared to.
Yeah. That's my favorite comparison because it's like, I mean, I work out a lot and it's never gonna, it takes time to like
There's
see any
no
sort of change. So you
quick,
have
there's no
to,
quick, there's no
yeah,
way around that, right? You
yeah.
just have to do it.
Mm-hmm. But it's like in the
Yeah.
meantime, you might not actually see the physical changes, but you always feel them if you're in tune with
Mhm.
it. You'll start sleeping
Yeah.
better, you'll start feeling better, you'll start feeling stronger, even though it's not necessarily like a massive external change. And I think it's the same with spiritual development, right? It's like you'll start
Yeah.
feeling these little things that like make the difference. And so, yeah, it's
And I
just,
think, like, 3 months down the road, you look in the mirror and you look different.
mm,
Do you know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
6 months down the road, right? And the same thing with meditation, with any spiritual practice. I like meditating, but it's not the only spiritual practice.
yeah,
The, you know, you stick with it 3 months down the road, you'll be like 6 months down the road, you'll begin to embody the difference,
mm-hmm,
like, live the difference.
mm-hmm. Is there anything like right now, just energetically in the collective, like time wise? I know there's so many like prophecies, whether it's astrology or human design in 2027 and all these like massive shifts that have been really kind of since 2020, right? Like happening. Is there
Yeah.
anything just like psychically or intuitively that you're picking up energetically or things that we can do um to like just develop our own selves right now and kind of come into, I guess, our I don't know if
Mm.
our truth is the right word that I'm looking for, but
It's a tricky time. And I think the overall, energy of the time is this deconstruction energy,
mm,
so we're at the deconstruction point, and that's natural. It's normal. It's not like it shouldn't be happening, because we just naturally go through stages where things are born, things live, things die, things we create, we sustain, we destroy. And it's just a natural cycle of evolution, and it's a universal cycle, not just here on earth but everywhere. But as humans, because we live in that ego self, we don't like change.
mm,
So the deconstruction process is never fun. It's always uncomfortable. It does come with opportunity. It does come with opening. I think the world is irretrievably broken, and it just has to like burn down to the ground, and we got to rebuild. We got to build. I believe we will rebuild at a higher level of beauty, harmony, and order, because that's evolution. That's the evolutionary process. And hopefully, as we rebuild, we make a better world, right? That's the opportunity. And I think so many of us, especially as healer types, have been chosen to incarnate on this planet at this time, so we can help other people, so we can ride the wave of ascension for our own growth. Um, so I think taking that view, um, getting out of fear and getting out of the doom and gloom and the end of the world. That's the end of the world as we know it. Is it the end of the actual world? No. But is there a whole lot we want to hold on to about the world that's leaving? I don't
mm,
I don't know. Like what and as we take a stand for love, as we don't, give into the fear, as we hold a higher vibration, like we can the only thing we have control over is the state of our own consciousness.
mm,
That's it. And I believe we are here to hold the light, to hold the higher state of consciousness. And that actually doing that can change. I work with Humanity's Team. It's Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden and Neil Donald Walsh created this beautiful organization called the Humanities Team. And they've done a lot of research that says like 10% of the population needs to shift into this higher state of consciousness. And it changes the evolutionary track of all of humanity, only 10%. And I think we're that 10%, And so doing our inner work, all the things we're talking about, tuning in more to our intuition, doing the spiritual practice, holding the higher vision, keeping yourself in the light, holding that vision of what you want the world to be, what you want your life to be, is how we make the change. You know, Sort of day by day, minute by minute, can you stay in the higher vibe, and not in a like spiritual bypassing, kind of way, because we have to, as we make the shift, we're purging out a lot of lower frequencies, a lot of old traumas, a lot of, past lives and lineage stuff. We're just purging out all this old crap. And it feels pretty gross, you
mm.
know? But I think like when the purging moments come up, you like release it all. And then you go back and, it's like dropping the sandbags off the hot air balloon so the hot air balloon can rise higher.
Mm.
And then we go back to feeling moments of joy. I think practicing mindfulness, staying in the moment is really important. I think really limiting your access to the toxic collective consciousness. Oh, I'm sorry, collective consciousness. I just called you toxic, but
Yeah.
it kind of is right now.
Mm.
And and like, is it even real? Like how much of what we see on the news and on social, it all feels like, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel real to me.
Yeah.
What's really happening? I don't know. Like, what do we got to do whatever we need to do to, and I feel like it's back to the basics for me: grounding, meditating, sleeping, eating really good food, turning off the TV. I just watch gardening shows and like HGTV.
Yeah.
I watch feel good TV, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I do it all right. So
Yeah.
managing myself, like sometimes it's like minute by minute, this minute, this
Mm.
minute, this minute, like, oh, am I okay? What do I got to do to be like to stay present in this moment and work through whatever is
Yeah.
coming up. I think that's it. I don't, but I think that's so powerful. Like, and we shouldn't underestimate the power of our one more person wakes up. All we need is one more person to wake up. one more person to hold the light, one more person to choose love over fear.
Mm,
And we're there.
yeah. I mean, you say like 10%, that sounds so small, like a small, I mean, I know there's a lot of people in the world, right? So 10% of that is a pretty big number, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it's like 10%. I don't know. And maybe it's like kind of being in this world of, healing and consciousness and growth, that I feel like there's so many of us out there that
Mhm.
sometimes I hear people talk about like the other side, or not being connected with emotions. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a whole world out there that doesn't even know to ask for help or to
Right.
express their emotions, right? I think you sometimes forget about that. So it's remembering that. And also, like you said, I mean, I think being in your body and being like you said, moment to moment, and choosing what's going to anchor you in and what's going to sort of like keep you centered and in your own, like that. It
Yeah.
sounds so simple, and it's like, but I'm not helping the bigger world, but you really are, right? And
You
in
really
doing
are.
that, because you're
100%.
impacting people around you, feel that.
Yeah. People around you feel that. And, the outer world is a reflection of our inner state of
Mm,
consciousness. So if you want to change the world, if you want external peace, you want world peace, you find peace in yourself. If you
yeah.
want love in the world, you love yourself. If you want, all those things, actually, that's really the only leverage we have. We can't control other people.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, change somebody else's mind. We can't, all we can do is stay in our own lane and manage our own experience. And that does have a ripple, you
Mm,
know, not only to the people um that we encounter, but like here's my example. Like I gotta get on the plane tomorrow. So I'm just gonna pray. I do a lot of prayer. Like I'll pray a lot on the plane that everyone be safe, that everyone's calm, that everyone's happy, that no one's scared.
mm,
I'll just send a wash of love through the plane. And you know, and that makes an impact. And then I'll hold myself in a calm state, in a as calm as I can be, you know,
mm,
in that state, and just we'll see what happens. Like try it and see, like if you're in the grocery store, if you're in the checkout lane, or you're with your kids, or if we hold that higher vibe, people sort of entrain to it. They start vibrating that way, and we're all looking for that. We're all looking for that peace and that harmony and that love. When we feel it around, we're like, oh my God, that feels so good. When we get around somebody who's radiating that.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I always think like if you're a parent or just like watching parents with kids, it's the best example of that, right? Because kids like don't listen to what you say. It's more like what you do, right? If your child is
Yeah.
freaking out and then you're reacting to that, it just amplifies everything versus if you can like
Yeah.
stay calm and have the conversation, then you see them start to settle. And I think
Yes.
that example just like extending outwards to more than
Hmm.
just, your child, but with everyone you come into contact with. If you're just
Right.
super reactionary, people just feed off that.
Yeah. It's like the mirror,
Mm.
the outer world is a mirror to our inner state.
Hmm.
And if we're reflecting out calm and peace and poise and equanimity and all those things, then people react to that. And if we're adding to the fear and the reactivity and the craziness, we're just throwing more fuel on the fire.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been such a good conversation. And I know you have like courses and you work with people in order to, have them tune into their gifts and get more healers out into the world. So how can they find you? How can they work with you? And what are you working on now?
Sure, yeah. So my website, lisacampion.com, is the place to go. And I have all kinds of online psychic development programs from beginner, intermediate, advanced, and even professional level. I teach Reiki online, my own brand of Reiki called Psychic Reiki, which is a combination of psychic development and Reiki training. And I have a bunch of books. So about Reiki, about being an empath, about psychic development. You can find them anywhere books are sold. I have a YouTube channel that has a lot of free stuff. I have a podcast called The Miracle of Healing. Check it out.
Mm.
And I thank you so much for your beautiful work. For your beautiful work. I love your podcast.
Oh,
So
thank
thank you for
you.
all the work you're doing out in the world too.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being here and sharing everything with the listeners.
Thank you.